So it was a real governance challenge.
Yeah.
And you're the governance expert.
No, I'm not a governance expert.
Well, you built the
blockchain.
block.
Thing is, like, I know enough to know you need governance on a blockchain.
Right.
And I think the governance model on Tezos has worked beautifully since then. I think it's really proved itself. It's fairly simple. It's fairly simple, right. But it got a lot of things right. And I'm not an expert. I know enough to know that we should have a different board. If it for a larger amount of money. But that's something that really came clear in the last few weeks and months of the like leading up to July of 2017.
Right. All right. So the big raise happens. It's probably a major media event. Yep. You obviously have a lot of stakeholders. You have a big chunk of money that beyond your wildest dreams. I mean, a couple of years earlier, you couldn't raise $5 million from Wall Street. Wouldn't raise one. Okay. This is so crazy.
The weird thing is that some people try to portray this as like, oh, he couldn't raise one, and now and now they've raised like 232, which shows that there's something wrong with this, with ICOs. And no, there was just something wrong with the people who didn't want to give me $1 million for what was clearly a really good project.
Yes.
That's what was wrong.
It boggles my mind that, if you can't raise $2 million, it's a bad idea. But if you can raise $200 million, then it's a scam. It's like, what do you mean? There's more people involved. There's more capital.
Yeah.
It's obviously showing you this, these two different marketplaces, right?
I mean, what it shows you is that a lot of people are just trend followers. No one cared about Tezos until basically, like, it became trendy to talk about governance in blockchains and proof of stake. You could lay out to people the arguments for proof of stake, and so I would talk to some VCs, and they were like, "Oh, isn't proof of stake impossible?" They don't want to think, through this hard technical problem for themselves. They just follow each other.
Right.
And it's still true today.
Yeah.
So people just follow each other, and what if you're fringe and it's like, oh, it's a weird idea. A lot of VCs pride themselves on being contrarians, but it's one of the least contrarian crowd I've seen.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's fascinating for me to watch because it's massive on technology and transparency and financial innovation. But I mean, Arthur, it's just as much on marketing and politics. I spent 6 months in politics. It's crazy what politicians do to get people's attention and get their vote. Yep. It very rarely has anything to do with policy, the right decisions. Mm-hmm. It's a show. I mean, look what's happening in London right now. It's a crazy, I had a member of parliament on my show many years ago, and he said, Brian, politics is show business for ugly people. That's what he said. And I had to laugh out loud, and he was in parliament, right? And it was an interesting comment. I mean, there's these weird factors going on when you're trying to get the attention of a public and getting them to do things. So you're feeling that now in the blockchain, where all of a sudden governance is trendy, you're getting eyeballs, you do this big raise.
But here's the thing that's weird. I understand why in politics you need to do a whole lot of things, because there's nothing in it for the voter. If the voter gets it wrong, it's not or right, it's not going to make a difference, because a single vote is not really going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So your incentive as a voter to get it right are very small.
Yeah, I spent 7 months campaigning to be mayor. The last 2 days is when anybody cared about it.
Yeah.
Then they voted, and they already forgot who they voted about. Even though I could see this is your future. This is knife crime on the streets, your transportation network, housing, business is suspended in London. This affects you. But most people woke up 48 hours before the election, if they voted at all. Then they went back to their daily lives. So like you said, how do you convince them it's worth it?
But like, it's crazy that VCs would do that, because they're actually paid to pay attention to this stuff, right. And they're just copying what other VCs do. It's extremely. I started out, I would say, like 10 years ago, being like a fan of VCs in general and a bit of a fanboy, and I have been extremely disillusioned by the space. Which it doesn't mean everyone is like this, but I would say a vast majority of VCs they're afraid of departing from consensus, extremely afraid.